My first memory of the Power Rangers honestly comes from when I would probably say early teens. I was a big Voltron fan and Transformers fan and lots of big robots. And I remember coming home from school and surfing through and initially thinking that I had fallen on like a new version of Voltron because there was these different animals, they were all robots, and it was this weird live action thing. And I just kind of sat there and got sucked into it for a second before I realized that it was a completely different show. I mean, yeah, still kaijus and everything. They were fighting each other. And I kind of got hooked on the original series. As I grew out of it, went to high school, and I lost track of how big it had become. But that's my first memory, is mistaking it for Voltron and digging it anyway. I'd actually say, like, impact-wise, Power Rangers, it kind of came and went. I liked it a lot when I was little, and then it kind of vanished on me for a long time. But then when I became a father and I watched a little bit with my son here and there, it was always present. If you go back and look, there's been almost 30 years of Power Rangers on TV. So no matter what, you could flip the stations and either find it in syndication or find one of the. Not that I knew what I was watching at the time, but you could grab an episode here and there, and it always had that same kind of feel. And then fast forward to when I got this job, obviously Power Rangers has really become a much bigger part of my life now. I binge watched a ton of it on Netflix, saw parts of series that I had never knew even existed, and really, like the comics, didn't know that it was that deep. It really is a much bigger franchise than I ever thought, and as far as like where that's kind of hit me is, it's neat to see something that was originally so child-based, so kid designed, so episodical, become a much deeper, larger story that spans decades at this point. I was really impressed. So I ended up on Power Rangers, on the Power Rangers team. Elisa, the role-playing lead at Renegade, reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to be part of this team that was going to do Transformers, G.I. Joe, and Power Rangers. And I've been in the industry for 20 years now, and I've been chomping on the bit for a good old 80s cartoon role-playing game for a decade or more. I even pitched to Mattel and Hasbro in the past, like personally said I would try to raise the money to get the license for some of these things. And so when she offered it, I was like, absolutely, 100%. See, I'm in. I initially believed that my first thought was, oh my God, I'm going to get to do a Transformers game. And when we got together at this meeting, she's like, well, you're on the Power Rangers team. And while that was definitely not any kind of a letdown or anything, it was unexpected. It needed to get done first. And I was, taking a look at the material. I was on board pretty much from Jump Street. I can't say that this hasn't been one of the coolest things I've had to work on in my tenure as a game designer. It really is. It's easily in the top 5. Diversity and inclusion in gaming, it is extremely important and always has been. But very recently, it has become something that every designer, every writer, every developer really has to kind of put. It used to be something that we would think about after the fact. Does this sound right? And after you've already written something. Now it's more along the lines of, before I sit down to write a section, or before I sit down and figure out here's the NPCs that are going to be in this particular section of game, it is not only better for the product, but it's also better for the editing process, better for the sensitivity editor. It saves everybody time if you think of it going into the project that you want this to be as inclusive and diverse as possible. Hopefully without seeming ultra forced. You want it to just be natural and the way that the real world is. And sometimes it is the kind of thing that, for someone who's been in the industry a long time, it takes some getting used to. But it is I will definitely say that we have a better product for it. And I definitely, in the last 2 years of working with Renegade and working on these projects, I've gotten personally much better at kind of keeping that stuff in mind when I'm writing and designing. As a developer with the project, you've got to keep in the front of your mind when you're writing these things down. The biggest surprise that hit me during the design process of the Power Rangers role playing game, was just how much Power Rangers lore there actually is. When you come down to it and you look at an individual episode of the show, they're pretty formulaic. And you go, okay, or at least they were in the very beginning. And as I learned more about lore, and as I got deeper into what we're going to be adding to this game over the course of hopefully several books, there's so much more. That there are characters that span multiple seasons. There's characters that span multiple types of Power Ranger team. These are things that when I sat down, I was like, okay, we're going to be able to make the different color spectrum of the Rangers, and that's going to be it. It's going to be awesome. And then suddenly I'm introduced to, oh, there's Phantom Ranger, there's Silver Ranger, there's Gold Rangers, all these other things that I had no idea even existed, that we had to kind of forward design, keep our design options open, knowing that stuff's going to come down the pipe at some point. And I had absolutely no idea that it even existed in the first place. That was my biggest surprise, is just how big the Power Rangers universe really is. If you want to be a writer in any capacity, whether it's magazine articles, novels, fanzines, even if it's just like a published internet blog, or you want to end up in the role-playing game industry, honestly, the biggest thing is know your worth. There are times when you will have people that will offer you, oh yeah, write me a couple of pages of stuff, and we'll see how it comes out. It's an industry. You're spending your time, you're spending your effort, and you're spending your creative juices making it happen. Discuss some terms. Have some thick skin, because there's a lot of rejections. It's an old anecdote. Writers write. Just don't stop writing. Even in your spare time, jot down tiny stuff. You never know. I sold a short story that was 15 years written. Someone had jogged my memory about this little vampire story that I had sitting in a journal somewhere. I had to clean it up a little bit, because obviously I've gotten better over the years. I don't remember writing it. I just remember that it existed. Never stop writing. If you want to be a writer, never stop writing, and be prepared that it is a rough road. I don't want to be all sugar and gumdrops for the situation. It is a rough road, but it is absolutely. I've been doing it now for 20 years, and I don't think I will ever do anything else until I am long gone in the dirt now. This was my first time ever being on a legitimately cooperative effort. I've done a lot of. I've got over 2 million published words at this point in the industry, and I've never co-written anything with anybody. I've been on, obviously there's editors and things like that, but I've never had anyone help me write the same product. And this was really neat. We had weekly meetings. We got together and discussed everything. There was a lot of times where someone would shoot out a term, and then we would. And someone would go, "Oh, I don't know if that's a great idea." And I had never really been in a true design and development team before for a role playing game. Board games and stuff is a different matter, but for a role playing element, an actual booked product, I've never had this much input. We had the people from the Transformers and the G.I. Joe team helping us with some of the stuff from Power Rangers, and obviously us on the Power Rangers team, we helped dramatically with the other books. It was an absolute back and forth effort, and I had never experienced that before. And I think that it's really, really cool, and it made for a very strong final product across all the lines. On the intro as well, when it comes to Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, I am at Bryan CP Steele. If you are one of the many newly founded gamers of TikTok, I am at The Professional Nerd, which refers to my YouTube channel, Tales from a Professional Nerd, which is me just basically rambling about the industry weekly and telling people funny stories about the stuff that happens in the life of a freelance game professional.